So I'm glad you all make it out here today. So I'm not going to go through his bio, but as you can see up from the slide, Command Sergeant Major Davenport coming from TRADOC. He's going to come up and talk to us for the next hour, hour and a half. And what he's looking for is an engaged discussion with you. He's going to cover some subjects that he wants to make sure you understand. Okay? Well, make sure you're engaged with him, because this is an opportunity we rarely get for him to come out here with his busy schedule. Hello? All right, so ready to Davenport?
All right, well, thanks a lot. We're back there trying to fool with the microphones. Well, sir, Sergeant Major, thanks for this great opportunity to get out and talk about what we're doing to the revolutionary change that we're going to try to do to our non-commissioned officer professional development system. If you're not aware, we've changed the name of our education system to professional development. And I tell you, there's what I'm very excited about being here today is all the work that you all are doing. Quite honestly, I came down here to specifically see about this great writing program that you're doing and how we can take that and scale it. Because that's what I have to look at, is how we scale it across the entire Army with fantastic work that's going on. So, sir, Sergeant Major, thank you for highlighting that for me and let me take it out and advocate on behalf of all the fantastic work going on down here. All right, well, y'all look fairly excited. Y'all having a good day? Okay, well, Sergeant Major's right. If I've had the honor of working with you, you know I'm kind of non-traditionals, and I enjoy having a lot of fun. And really, if you saw the town hall, really get out and talk about some major initiatives. And hopefully I will work the pointer correctly, or laser pointer. I tried to tell him I'm a tanker, and I'm not that smart. All right, obviously I can't figure it out. There we go. So I'm just used to a laser, so you put a laser on it and get it done. Okay, so this week is 1 year in the job for me in TRADOC. And I had a lot of misconceptions when I joined this fantastic team. Now I know that there's all the organizations from the installations here, but just talk about my observations of TRADOC. I didn't realize, first of all, how large TRADOC was and all the hard work that goes on. When I was down in the line or in 1-1 CAF or wherever I've served before, I thought, what does TRADOC know? You know, they just come, how do they come up with this stuff? Well, in the year, I've learned there's a lot of rigor behind a decision that is made. Whether it's for the PT test, a writing program, a piece of kit, TRADOC really does a lot. And if you're not really sure what TRADOC does, what we're for, we design the Army, we acquire the Army, and we build the Army, and we improve the Army. I mean, just think about that for a minute. That's what TRADOC is for our Army, to effect change doing that. We design the Army with ARCIC, a great organization at Fort Eustis that thinks about the future, whether it's formations or the kit that we're using. They design the Army. We acquire the Army. I saw some gold badges as I was walking in. The great USAREC team, our recruiters, they acquire that talent for us. We got our great cadet command at Fort Knox as well that helps us acquire our officer corps. So ARCIC designs, USAREC and cadet command acquires, and then build. Think about building a soldier. That comes from our great Center for Initial Military Training right there at Fort Eustis. And then improve the Army is really CAP. And that's where all the centers of excellence in the schools are underneath. And get back to my other point about how the hard work that goes behind, when you really think about improve, TRADOC does a lot of surveys. Y'all probably surveyed to death, right? A lot of studies, a lot of focus groups. And when I came to TRADOC, I realized that as we were talking about NCL 2020 to improve our Army, we had all these surveys and studies done, but there was really nothing we were working at and what we were getting at. So when I came on board, I looked at everything under the means column there, that far left-hand column, all these surveys and studies, and I started pulling out these things in the center that I thought we should get at in order to improve the NCL cohort if we really wanted that end state, that non-commissioned officer, creative and adaptive, can fight the force of 2025. So that's kind of where we started off at. And then I quickly realized, and the CG and I were talking on the ride over, is about the relationships that I would have to build in order to get this done. I had to have a relationship with the Department of Army 357 so that we could cut the fragos and the base orders. I had to have a relationship with the G8 to pay for it. I had to have a relationship with the Sergeant Major of the Army to make sure that we're saying the same things. And if you were here during his visit, I'm sure during the course of the discussion, you're going to hear that we're saying a lot of stuff. So those are the stakeholders that I'm working with down at the bottom to really affect change. But what clearly stood out in my mind at the very onset of all this work is that we had to get soldiers to school. And so that's really where STEP came about. To drop a chalk line in July 31st of last year, we had 14,000 non-commissioned officers that had not been to PME that was required for the rank that they were wearing. 14,000. Of that 14,000, 4,000 had been in grade 3 or more years. Of that 4,000 that had been in grade 3 or more years, 1,200 of them have been deferred 6 or more times from going to school. Of that 14,000 non-commissioned officers in that backlog, 72% of that backlog had been scheduled 2 or more times. Okay, so that's why we had to have STEP. STEP is that forcing function that gets our non-commissioned officers into the school. And by now, hopefully, you're fully aware of STEP. Select, train, educate, promote. There's a couple of folklore running around out there about STEP. STEP is not mandated promotions. It says it right there that you have to be selected based on your performance and your potential and your character. So it's not automatic promotion. You're selected by your, whether it's at the semi-centralized level, the company commander and first sergeant, based on recommendations from the platoon leader, platoon sergeant. If it's a centralized board, it's the board of your CMF that selects you based on that. So then, once you're selected, the training, that's where the 3 domains of leadership start to work together. The operational domain, or the organization, you all are going to make sure that Specialist Davenport is ready to become a non-commissioned officer. If Specialist Davenport is a loader on the tank, maybe you start teaching them about the gunner station. Maybe you allow them to start exercising leadership by instructing PRT. But you're starting to set that foundation to grow Specialist Davenport into a non-commissioned officer. Everybody with me? Okay. So once you do that, and that great Specialist Davenport, believe it or not, a long time ago there was a Specialist Davenport, they have to do one more thing before they go to the board. What is that? SSD, right? So they have to complete their SSD. Now I know we're going to do some questions here in a moment. SSDs are not going to go away. As a matter of fact, we're bringing more into our non-commissioned officer professional development system. There was 2 promotions that didn't have an E. And the E is the formal education that the institutional domain does. So where you go to your ALCs and SLCs. Master sergeants did not have a school set aside for them. And so we developed the Master Leader course. And we just finished the last pilot on Monday. And we're going to do one more AAR. And then beginning the FY17 Master Sergeant list, it becomes a program of record. So if you're selected for a promotion to Master Sergeant, before you can get to the P, promote, you're going to have to attend the Master Leader course. Everybody with me? Well, don't get depressed about it. It's an opportunity to show you how brilliant you are when you get into the schoolhouse. And so you see one down highlighted there on the bottom of the chart, the ELC. Now, I wanted Sergeants Major to get a part of this STEP program as well. And so your great brigade Sergeants Major, once they have been successful and based on their performance and their potential, we select them to compete to become what is known as a nominative Sergeant Major. A Sergeant Major that works for a General Officer. And so once they're selected to compete for that job, there's a course we're going to send them to, an E, called the Executive Leader Course. Now, I often get asked, why is it in red during the town hall? It's because I'm not sure of the name. I don't know if Sergeants Major, the higher you go, and then just a non-commissioned officer, we're here to serve. I don't know if we're executives. So that's why it's in red if someone is going to ask that question. So that's STEP. Select, train, educate, promote. And that process, there's no way around it. So if you want to get promoted, you got to go into the school. Fair enough? I mean, I'm boring you already? Okay, so to be successful,
This is just not Davenport driven. Those stakeholders that I talked to you about that I was going to partner with, this is the very first order that came out. This was what started it all back in July. It's where the Chief of Staff of our Army, and I was telling a great story with the CG coming in the door about the meeting with the Chief of Staff in order to get his buy-in, General O at the time. And he loved everything we laid out. And he gave the Department of the Army staff 60 days to get behind what I was trying to do with STEP and this base order. So a lot goes to him. It says that if we want to have this creative and adaptive non-commissioned officer, we need to look how we train them. Okay? So STEP gets you to the institution, to the brick and mortar. So we're looking at facilities. Are our facilities to standard where it promotes learning? We're looking at our cadre. Are we training and certify them to the appropriate level? We're looking at the POIs. I had a great conversation earlier today about the POI work that we're going to begin with. We're bringing back Common Core to non-commissioned officer PME. And for your, looks like y'all a very young audience, except for a few in this front row here. Common Core is about 6 subjects. And these 6 subjects, they're going to start in the BLC, and they're going to be progressive, sequential, and build them over time. And they're going to reinforce what you've learned in prior PME. So like one of the modules is how to be a trainer, because that's what our job is as non-commissioned officers, to be primary trainers. Okay? And so we don't teach that anywhere in our PME. So years ago, we used to have a program called Battalion Training Management System, BTMS. And when you became a sergeant, you had to go attend this 40-hour course in order to be able to get out a soldier's manual, identify a task, write a lesson plan, and then go in front of senior NCOs and show that you can teach. Okay? So that's going to be a module in the rewrite of the basic leader course, training. So imagine when you're at ALC, how you build upon that. So maybe at ALC we start talking about how to use the digital job book. Okay, if you're not aware, that got hung on the ATN this week. That's the way we're going to record and track soldiers' training, so that when we look at NCO PDS, what tasks can we pull out of the institution domain and to free up contact hours that the organization or the operation domain can help us with. So maybe at a senior leader course, we start talking about training management, STRAC. And then maybe when you get up to that nominative level course, we start talking about live virtual constructive training, how to use the training brain at TRADOC, how do you create that complex training environment. So that is kind of the thread I hope you understand that we're pulling through with this Common Core. So POIs, cadre, facilities. And once we got you into the classroom, we got to make sure that we record all the great work you're doing in there. And so that's why you're hearing a lot of the conversations about the retooling of the 1059 or the AER. Put things on there such as your height, weight, your APFT score. Because typically the NCOAs, that's kind of what they're known for. Your grade point average, how well academically are you doing in the classroom? Your enumeration of your class standing. Sergeant Major Daly is student number 100. Sergeant Major Davenport, student 500 of 500. Talking about your writing assessment. And so in every PME course that you will attend, to include drill sergeant school, you'll take a writing assessment. Another reason why I wanted to get down here and see the great work you all have done to develop that concept. So your writing assessment score on there. And then last, make sure that you've taken your MSAF 360 evaluation so you can see if you had any blind spots. And then your instructors will write about you narratively and move away from the bullet format. And what we're hoping with this rewrite or this academic evaluation report is that it'll paint a better picture for the board. Everybody with me? So a lot of work is going on into establishing rigor and relevance to our PME. Career maps, you'll see that up there. We've posted them on ACT, the Army Career Tracker, the first turn of them. Sergeant Major and the team down here has done a fantastic job developing them for a very complex series of CMFs. They go across 5 lines of effort. That's what's common. The first line of effort is about experience. What jobs do we want you to have as a non-commissioned officer to prepare you for the next grade? The second line of effort is education. It's more than PME and SSDs. We're going to start having the conversation about civilian education so that you can see that it's going to be needed. The third line of effort is the broadening line of effort. And what we mean by that is we're moving away from the term SDA assignments or special duty assignments, like drill sergeant, recruiter, AIT, platoon sergeant. On that line of effort, you'll start seeing other things such as academic fellowships. And if your particular CMF, you have a training with industry opportunity, it's going to be highlighted on there. The fourth line of effort is credentialing. Those credentials civilian credentials that we think have application to your job, to your CMF, that has value. That's going to be on there. And then the last line of effort is JPME, Joint Professional Military Education. We're going to start requiring non-commissioned officers to have JPME at the staff sergeant level. And the reason behind that is, I know you knew the TRADOC Sergeant Major was coming, you knew your CG and Sergeant Major was going to be here, so last night you read the Army operating concept, right? It's one of our great documents. And if you take the time to read it, you'll see that one of the first organizing principles is the Army is the foundation of the joint force. And if we're going to say that, we need to make sure that our backbone understands what the joint force is. So those are 5 lines of effort. I already talked about the digital job book earlier. We've talked about the Master Leader course. I'm sure we'll get some comments about that. Last thing I want to talk about is the NCO strategy. General Perkins and I signed it in December. I'm a huge Miami Dolphin fan, if no one knows that. So I had to come up with a number that I could remember, 13. So the pages are 13 in that strategy for Marino's number. And 2 of those pages are pictures. So I think if you take the time to read the direction we're heading, you'll understand about the 3 lines of effort. The first line of effort is development. I kind of talked about that, about how we want to train you better. The second line of effort is talent management. How do we want to organize HRC? How do we give proponencies more say in assignments? And then the third line of effort is how do we reinforce the non-commissioned officer's role in being the stewards of the profession, upholding those standards and discipline. And then so no base order would be good unless you had a frago. And so that was our first frago. And what happened is we started digging down into the details of STEP. How were we going to do STEP? And that's really what's laid out in Frago 1. Really establishing the 3 priorities of getting into school, whether your first is those affected by STEP. STEP became a requirement beginning 1 January. So your priority number 1 to go to school. The second priority are those in the backlog, those 14,000. Well, quite honestly, it's down quite a bit. Just by talking about STEP, we saw a huge spike in non-commissioned officers getting to school, go figure, and brought that number down 4,000 folks. We already started seeing some of the non-commissioned officers that thought STEP wasn't going to happen blow it off, get selected for QSP for not being PME compliant. So STEP is out there and taking effect. And then the third is that train ahead population. Like if you have a RAF mission, get ready to come up, or a training exercise coming up, your chain of command will handle that. If you're interested in being a walk-on or a standby, it's a matter of filling out a 4187, using your chain of command, and sending it up to HRC, to Mr. Bailey at the NCOS branch. Now, I just want to caution about that. When that 4187 goes up, you're telling Mr. Bailey and team that you're ready for school. And as Mr. Bailey gets into the 30-day lock-in period and he needs to fill seats, he's going to go to that stack of 4187s. If you get locked in for school, you got to go to school. Or that creates a what? A deferment, right? And so we had a huge problem with deferments, as I said earlier. Just in first quarter and second quarter, while we got our arms around deferments, we had over 5,000 deferments to schools. Okay? And so to discipline that process, what we said was, if you're scheduled for school and you can't attend school and it requires a deferment, it goes to the first general officer in your chain of command. Not that we don't trust battalion commanders or brigade commanders or sergeants major, but what we wanted to do was enter into a understanding. So if Davenport can't go to class 215 ALC, in that deferment memo, that general officer says we would like him to go class 0616. That's a priority field for us. So you get locked in for whatever school's on that memorandum. Everybody understand that? The need for it? Okay. And then I think that hits everything in the STEP for Frago. And then the last one I want to talk to you is about Frago 2. And we had a great conversation with the Sergeants Major earlier this morning about Frago 2. Frago 2 is the realignment of our manning EPMD, our branches inside of HRC. And what we're talking about, or what we're going to do, we've already begun work to collapse 3 Sergeant Major's offices into one. We had a nominative Sergeant Major office, we had a Command Sergeant Major office, and we had a Sergeant Major office. And to become more efficient, we're collapsing it under one non-commissioned officer or Sergeant Major that answers to the Sergeant Major of the Army. We are adjusting tour lengths for Sergeants Major. They're going to go to 30 months. We're changing the policy of everyone's going to be all in so that we can see everyone when they get screened for promotion, rather than not choosing to get into the competition and really kind of hanging out for a while. I think you're all tracking the work we're doing with the MRD dates as well, changing the MRD dates for Sergeants Major, Master Sergeants, and Sergeants First Class. And then last is really for the great work here at Fort Huachuca, is to bring in the proponencies role back into manning of the force. And so as the MI branch manager transitions, I don't know when, but the next one, the command team down here will select that Sergeant Major to work in EPMD. And they will have a dual hat kind of responsibility. They will be tied to HRC and the Center of Excellence through the NCOER. So it kind of gives that branch manager responsibilities in both worlds. Okay? You're not excited about revamping the way we do assignments? No? Okay. Well, it's a lot of work, and I'm looking forward to getting at it. And the last thing I want to leave you with is I had a great conversation with a great senior non-commissioned officer over in the 35 Tango course about, he's following me on the blog. And we had a great conversation about the direction we're going to move with civilian education. And he got it all from the blog. He was quoting the blog to me. And I was like, dude, you do realize I write it myself, so I know what's on there. And quite honestly, that's a couple of things that the force doesn't understand. That is me writing to you all, sharing my insights as I travel and start thinking through some of these things that we've talked about earlier. Go to TRADOC News, all one word, .org. That's our homepage, and you'll see it. It'll say Sergeant's Major Blog, and it'll take you to that page right there. Now, what happens is I usually post it on Tuesday because I write it on Sunday when I get some quiet time and kind of reflect, do some reflective time. And it usually gets posted around Tuesday when I would get it uploaded. But when you go on there, a lot of leaders get freaked out because there's a link on there that says email Sergeant Major Davenport. It's my real email. And so don't get freaked out when you click it just to see if it works, and it pops up my real email address. And what I ask leadership to do is trust me to understand when it's a question about our profession or it's a leadership issue. I promise you, if it's a leadership issue, I'll respond back, go talk to your chain of command. And I usually put in there, I'm going to give you a couple of days because I'm going to forward it to your Center of Excellence or your Division Sergeant Major so they have awareness. I'm just trying to work with y'all, man. So it's this trust relationship. But if it's a question about the profession, I go in great detail. And it's nobody writing it for me. As a matter of fact, sir, Sergeant Major, I probably would fail y'all's writing assessment for poor grammar, spelling, punctuation. But I respond back to it. And if I can't help you, I'll find the answer. So let's have that relationship, because really I'm using this as a way. I can't do town hall. It's one of me and over 391,000 non-commissioned officers in our Army. And I'm talking about Guard, Reserve, and active component. So I can't get around everywhere, so I'm trying to leverage technology. Okay, so that's kind of the pitch that I would like to use this morning. But what I really would like to do is hear from you all. What is on your mind? Why do you think that we could do better, or a suggestion you might have for me? So who has the first question? Who's going to be the brave one? Yeah, right in front.
I've seen a couple times different ways, NCO core versus NCO cohort. Can you describe or explain which direction should we be leaning and why?
Yeah, for you all, I want from the enterprise approach, it's the cohort. It's the Guard, Reserve, and the active component. That's what I have to worry about with Sergeant Major of the Army, Sergeant Major Brunt Conley from the NGB, and Jim Wills from the RC. So when we talk, it's about the cohort. For you all, it is about the core, the NCO core. And because just tell you, everything that we outlined on that applies to the other two components. The National Guard is under STEP as well. Now, the way it's applied is a little different because of training days and funding pay allowances and things like that. But from the time that they do vacancy promotions as well. They have 24 months to get to school. But same process. Great question. All right, who's got the next one? So, yeah.
Sorry, Sergeant First Class Brown. I'm an AIT student sergeant here, and of course, I think one of the biggest questions that we have on is what is the future of the AIT student sergeant, and how does it correspond with the future of the drill sergeant?
Yeah, thanks for bringing it up. You better sit down, it's going to be a long one. So I shared with you that I've been in a job for a year. And so like the second or third day I'm in the job, I come into my office and there's a couple of folders on my desk. And I'm really excited. I'm like, wow, I'm about ready to make some big time decisions. And the first one that I opened up was for our armor badge. And there's a program in the armor community called EIA, and they wanted a badge for the program. And I thought, well, you know what? The armor guys are waiting Sergeant Major Daly out. Sergeant Major Daly was an infantryman. They think because I'm an armor guy, it's going to get rubber stamped. And so that didn't happen. Right underneath it was the AIT platoon sergeant badge. And so I read through it, and then I started asking some questions. We had a badge that I was aware of that I asked why couldn't it be used for AIT platoon sergeant. It's an instructor badge. And it came back that AIT platoon sergeants weren't considered instructors. So that doesn't make sense to me. I was like, who's the proponent of the instructor badge? And they go, you are. So I said, well, how about we look at how we can apply the badge, instructor badge to that. And it didn't want to do it. So then, as you start peeling the onion back, and I kept getting asked this question, so when you read 350-6, I'm sure you read it all the time, and you read about the AIT platoon sergeant, it's about that transition period, right? From direct control to realizing what a non-commissioned officer is really about. And from personal experience, when I was a platoon sergeant, I didn't have a belt, a badge, or a hat. And it was kind of sending mixed messages, in my opinion. And so then once I really started learning a lot about TRADOC and learned about what hard work goes on in the INT environment, you go to school for 6 weeks of the 8-week program, just like a drill sergeant, and you get pulled out the last 2 weeks to go to MRT training. That just didn't kind of make sense to me. And then when you talk about improving our product, that soldier, that fully trained soldier that we hand off to Forces Command and other units, how do we improve the discipline, the fitness and training of, and I thought it was to bring back the drill sergeant program. So I can improve the product, make sense of the school, and recognize non-commissioned officers for the hard work they do. Does that help? I mean, you don't have to agree with it. I mean, does it go through my thought process?
Yes, Sergeant Major. For the most part, I just, for those of us who are legacy AIT platoon sergeants, we're just wondering, based on what our future is, how that's going to.
Yeah, you did nothing wrong. You did absolutely nothing wrong. And I was sharing with one of the cars I was in today. I was part of a program called Future Combat Systems, that the leader of it, and I see some laughter going on out there. It didn't hurt me. It's really about your performance. And so I wouldn't get out of your mind, everyone's mind is AIT, that you've done something wrong. You did absolutely nothing wrong. I'm just trying to improve what we have. That's all I'm trying to do. Okay, you'll be fine. Just don't get in trouble between now and the next promotion board. Now, if there's any AIT platoon sergeants in here, so what I asked General Funkhauser and Sergeant Major Gregg, I'm all about sending AIT platoon sergeants back to drill sergeant school. So you have to pick up that, before you say hooah, I heard a hooah over here. I heard a hooah. You're going to pick up that third module. And you got to re-enter into the drill sergeant school. So that means height, weight, APFT test. And it will produce a 1059. If you're, and I've asked them to work through the mechanics of it about time. So if you're going to go back and get to be a drill sergeant, I've asked them to look at what's reasonable. So if you just came out of AIT platoon sergeant, or you just got on the station, maybe we pick you up early to get that, and you can serve as a drill sergeant. But maybe you're a year into it, and we can't get you to school till, you're 15, 16 months into your tour. If you want to be a drill sergeant, we'll send you back. But I'm going to need some time for you to serve following, since we sent you to school. Everybody, does that make sense? All right, I don't know what that is. That's IMT's role. Yes?
You mentioned that you were a component for the AIT instructor badge.
No, it's no AIT, the instructor badge. No, there's no AIT badge.
Are you looking at it to make it a permanent badge?
It,
NCOs that are teaching MOST and AIT students?
Yeah, so it's open up to everyone. The rewrite will be coming out in August. So I have this organization called the Institution for Non-Commissioned Officer Professional Development. It's a group of very smart men and women that kind of helped me think through all this stuff. And when we started looking in the instructor recognition program, it didn't make sense to me that our other cohorts, and I hate to use that word cohort, but our other teammates, our officer corps, our warrant officers, it was only for non-commissioned officers. Education is everybody's got skin in the game, so everybody should be recognized. So it's now open, or will be open, for all cohorts, and we've changed some of the standards to tie education to a certain level of badge. It's more than just how many hours you've been on the platform. Okay? Good, great question. Yes, yes.
Sergeant Major, I'm Sergeant Moran. I have significant heartburn with SSD.
Okay, I do too.
The reason I do is that I did online training. I do online college, and SSD was click the button, watch the video, answer 5 questions. Click another button, watch the video, answer 5 questions. Some of it had misspellings, and at my 5th grade, I felt not have proper grammar in SSD was a little bit almost insulting.
Yeah, I agree.
It can be significantly better by applying the principles of the Army Distance Learning Instructor course and using the Blackboard program, which is used in many of our courses for distance learning, making it more interactive with an online instructor and enrollment into the program. Is that a possibility?
Yeah, so great question. I agree with everything you said. So what you're not aware of, we just finished a SSD conference on all 6 levels. So there's 6 of them now. And I've heard from the force what you want. We are going through there to make sure that the material in there is needed. And it's just not going to be a stopping point for mandatory training. And so then roll the digital job book comes into how can you record mandatory training rather than do it in PME. We're going to, so that should affect the number of hours. We are going to have it produce a letter grade that will get rolled into your 1059, your overall grade point average. And for y'all that think you can split screen it, yeah, I'm tracking about split screening. We're going to partner with a program that regenerates questions every time you log off. So every time you log off, the program will regenerate questions to finish the remainder of the course. So unless you're going to sit there for 35 straight hours or whatever it ends up to be, a lockout, the force has asked for a lockout, the working group. If you take it, you fail it, I'll lock you out for 2 weeks so you can go get corrective training or do some more reading. But when you come back in to retake it, have it on account for 70. So everything that you're talking about, we are looking at. Once we start work on Frago 3, talking about what we want in brick and mortar classes, you're going to see SSDs change. But more importantly, SSD 2 is not just preparing you for ALC. It's also going to require you to go back to BLC stuff. So you just don't data dump it. So I think we're on a path of that you're looking forward to. What else? Well, don't let SSD bring you down. We're working on it. Trust me. It takes time. Okay. No, yes. I'm sorry, I didn't see you.
Question for you real quick. Sandy, going back to the drill sergeant you mentioned a while ago, do we have a timeline for when we're looking at drill sergeant possibly coming back to the AIT environment?
Yeah. So we were talking about this as well. So we have to go through a process to get it funded. So the CBA is up at TRADOC headquarters. I looked at it a couple of days ago. I imagine it's at the DCG, and then once the CG signs at General Perkins, it'll go up to Department of the Army for their concurrence. So I wouldn't say anything until probably late summer, early fall. Okay. Nothing moves that fast. Yes?
Major Messar, Henderson of Knock Me.
Mhm.
Can you talk more about the possible changes coming forth with the 1059, dealing with both enumeration and how they might get implemented in NCOED or NCOS or what was formerly NCOS?
Yeah, so where we're at with that, we're IncoPod, myself, HRC, and the G1, we're all part of our working group. And what we're doing is to see how we can capture everything that goes on while you're in that environment. And we know we have some mandatory things, much like mandatory things in SSD, but how do you highlight it so a board it's easy to pick out, and then you can read about the soldier. So that is one course of action. Of course, that's the course of action I prefer. And then there's a course of action to have kind of like looking like the new NCOER and a block check. Do you have presence? If you do, why? But I don't think that we have an NCOER for a reason. We should really look at the purpose or reason behind that academic evaluation report. And I don't think we want it to look exactly the same. Did that help?
It wasn't quite well, unfortunately, Major. I was more in reference to, I saw some of the traffic, I guess, coming down, possible changes in 1059. We're talking about 50% of the class would be just considered past the, just standard versus the other 20 to 30% being achieving or exceeding core standard. That piece of it.
Yeah.
And also, how that would apply, for instance, in our SLC, we have a combination of MOSs where certain might not be as able to.
Yeah. So I don't know where that came from, but it's nothing that we're looking at TRADOC level. Now the proponency, who has oversight of those schools, if that's a rubric they're developing, I'm just not aware of it.
Things coming out of the Sergeant Major's Academy, they're looking for enumeration of who's in the class, much as you
Right.
talked about before, when they graduate from the academy, who's the number 1 student, who's the 500 student, and is that on their academic evaluation?
Enumeration is on there, but I think you may specifically be talking about the block check. If you exceeded core standards, if you met the standards, that on the 1059, right? Yeah, at TRADOC level, we're not talking about changing that at all. As a matter of fact, since you have awareness of the old 1059, all I'm talking about doing is taking off the number 6 there that says has potential for further education. Well, STEP takes care of that for me. So all I need to do is move that dark line up and move the other line down and put in some areas where it says, hey, put those that empirical data in there, and then have the instructor write about Davenport, not pre-filled out bullets. That's what I'm working toward. Did that? Okay. Or are you just saying who would shut me up? I got you. All right. Who else? Yes, one in the back.
With regards to the drill sergeant and the drill sergeant, when the drill sergeants come back into play, or do you plan on phasing the drill sergeant down to the instructor rank, or?
Oh, great question. So I usually get asked this too. It's much like the white or black PT socks. So they'll trit out over time. Either they'll choose to go back and become a drill sergeant, they'll just attrit out. And when they attrit out, that's when we'll bring in a drill sergeant, if we go that way. Okay? Yeah, I'm sorry, I didn't see you.
I just had a question for you to go ahead and ask you. It's in regards to the training and education portion of STEP specifically. As time goes by, I've seen that accessibility for training a lot of times has become restricted, and those restrictions, it seems like as though it kind of sets people back in the sense that, for example, we used to have a difficult time with getting training because it used to be documented, paper and all that kind of stuff. In other words, correspondence was done via mobile and books and getting a hold of books. Now we have electronics and stuff like that. It seems as though training was accessible, so you can advance as far as you want in training. I'm talking specifically about SSD. SSD was open so that you could do as much SSD as you wanted to do. do. But now you have to be enrolled in something or something along those lines. To me, it doesn't seem logical to create those sort of barriers. If you're doing education in the college, you can go as far as you want.
Mm-hmm.
You start being E3 and be working on your master's degree. And be that far advanced, but why do we limit ourselves so much in regards to something that is military specific? Why would it be restricted?
Yeah.
I've also noticed something too in regards to, I apologize, it's a little bit loaded, in regards to civilian certification.
Mm-hmm.
A long time ago I did some Cisco certification. I did solution assistance. So it was accessible at a time. But now you have to use your GI Bill. Additionally, if you want a voucher from the military, you have to be on orders or something along those lines. A lot of times people that work in those fields aren't necessarily working in that job position, but they still need to maintain those skills. So accessibility as far as education and training, what used to be available has now been restricted. And to me, I don't see the logic in it.
Okay, so you take a knee, drink water. This is going to be a long one. All right, so first of all, accessibility, and specifically SSDs. What we had is soldiers rushing out to try to do all the levels, thought it was going to mean something to the board. And what happened is as we update, refresh SSD content, it wasn't tied to anything. And so now that it's tied to PME, it could be, you're in BLC now, it could be 20 years before you go to the ELC course. And the information that we want you to have is not going to be relevant to what you're going to see. Okay, so that is why, and again, it's about tying back to the previous course. Okay, so keep that continuity of learning going. Okay, so that's why we don't allow everybody to take all SSDs at once. As a matter of fact, if you was one of those soldiers and you did that, what you saw was your mail code on your ERB get rolled back to your appropriate level, right? And so the reason why that was done is to make sure that through automation that you're talking about, that we made sure you were prepared to come into the brick and mortar, that you didn't have outdated stuff. So that's why we rolled back the mail codes. So I think that might have answered all the barriers. Yeah, so we're looking at making more things smartphone, tablet enabled. Not only in SSDs, Army Career Tracker, for example. Your experience in your PME. Fort Gordon's running a great test for me with, I think it's 25 Sierras if the MOS is right, about bring your own device, about leveraging QR codes. We're developing a item called the digital rucksack. Is how, as you go through, gain all these great experiences in this apps and different things like that, you want to use manuals. How do you pack your rucksack so that when you need your wet weather gear, you reach back there and pull it out and you use it. So that's another thing about accessibility to training. We're looking at developing some type of web-based video type learning environment as well, so that the proponent sees if how to clear misfires on a tank is important. Maybe putting some informational video in a channel related to the armor proponency where you can go and learn. Talking about how do you make ATN come alive, the Army Training Network. If you haven't been on there, there's a little clip box up there. It's called the NCO Corner. So if you're an NCO and you kind of goes to mentorship, how can you reach out to someone if you don't have a mentor? So we're looking at that as another way to break down a barrier to training. And then you have one more, and I forgot. I'm old. Certification. Okay. So recently we had several organizations, people involved in getting certifications, and we had TRADOC now as the lead. Is actually at the Army University, where we got Sergeant Major of the Army's support and looking at the getting the narrative change in law for tuition assistance, where Not only is it for education, but it can be for training. That's how those certificates are seen. The vouchers is setting aside some money to issue vouchers, not waiting for the need, but kind of anticipating. Again, a part of your branch development. That's why that line on your career map is important. Okay, so you can identify those credentials that your proponent says is worth investing in. Okay? Oh, follow up.
Thank you, Sergeant Major.
Okay, thanks. I thought you was going. All right, so I am level 1 certified. All right, so I think we got, I don't wear a watch, so I think we got time one more. Or?
Yes, Sergeant.
All right, one more. Who's got the great last question? Nobody?
Sergeant Major?
Yeah.
Can you tell us a little bit about ForceCom and TRADOC and how we're making sure that TRADOC's going where the Army's going in the future?
Oh, yeah. Well, so on my phone on speed dial is General Perkins, of course, my CG, Sergeant Major of the Army, Sergeant Major Scott Schroeder from Forces Command, and Sergeant Major Jim Sims from Army Materiel Command, AMC. And that is really, I don't think there's a day that goes by that I don't talk to one of them, that how synced we are. And y'all may have heard about this group that we come together. It's called the Senior Enlisted Council. We come together with a few other senior sergeant majors in the Army, and we kind of brainstorm. And then what happens is we pick those items that we think has potential, and then we move forward with the ACOMs. Because if you think about it, we train the Army, Forces Command trains, makes ready, and then AMC sustains our Army. So it touches one of those groups. So we're very much in sync. I think one of the best things that I could highlight that with is readiness. Of course, we all know that that's the Chief of Staff of the Army's #1 priority, readiness. And so when you say readiness, what does that mean? And so one of the common core portfolios or subjects that's going to go through your entire PME is a discussion on readiness. What does that mean at the level that you're at? So Sergeant Major Schroeder gave some ideas, especially like the probably Sergeant First Class level, really starting to understand MedPros and that kind of stuff. Wow, that's a big deal for our Army. E-profile. Sergeant Major Sims talks about sustainment of equipment. You know, it's more than why is motor pool maintenance so important. What actually happens to that 5988? You know, why is that so? What's the process of writing it down and getting that part in? So we're very much joined at the hip between the ACOMs, Sergeant Major of the Army, and General Perkins, the TRADOC commander. Did that hit the point you want? Okay, well, look, I know there's somebody out there going, yeah, right. Look, we're moving out. And what I'm asking you to be a part of is the change. So if you got something out there that you didn't want to stand up and get caught on camera or have your friends say, why'd you ask him that? You have the blog site and you can email me. Really, the reason why I do all these things is to communicate directly to you so you're not dependent on second, third hand information, things passed around on the internet. I'm very appreciative of all the support that the CG and Sergeant Major gives to me. I communicate with Sergeant Major quite often, and it's apparent because by the amount of questions I got asked over in 35 Tango course and with the Sergeants Majors, the chain of command works. So if you have a doubt, a concern, a lack of understanding, talk to your leadership, and I guarantee you they know the direction that we're heading in. Fair enough? All right, well, I look forward to working with you all, and again, I've been very impressed by all the great work that you're doing down here at Fort Huachuca. I'm very excited about this writing program. You might not be, but I am, because I got to up the rigor in the classrooms as I promised, and I look forward to serving each and every one of you.
So Sergeant Major, real quick, what I'd like to do is thank you, number one, for coming out and talking to everybody here for Fort Huachuca that was able to get out here during your lunchtime. So I present you a coin on behalf of the commander, General Barrier. It's got my rank on it as well. It's got the Chief Warrant Officer of MI Corps, Matt Martin, and it's also got the Senior Executive Service, our deputy. And on the other side of the coin, we've got at the leading edge of our nation's defense since 1877, which is in Fort Huachuca, was founded and presented for excellence with our Buffalo Soldier, which, as we've talked about, this is the home of the Buffalo Soldier. And we'll talk about that a little bit later over lunch.
Okay, well, thanks. I really appreciate it. Thank you a lot. Thank you a lot. And just to be clear, Sergeant Major, I wasn't a sergeant in 1877.
You were here, right?
Yeah, exactly.